I just told them it was mine. I didn't know what it would lead to. I couldn't have possibly thought that they would sell it. Anyway, on the fourth day of my visit, I had gone to meet a friend, and when I came back, the car was gone. I started panicking immediately because I thought it was stolen, but when I went inside to speak to my parents about it, they told me that they had sold the car. I was shocked, and they explained that when I had shown up with the car, they decided to take a couple of photos of it and send it to a bunch of their friends to ask if anybody would be willing to buy, and one of them had found an interested buyer who was willing to pay quite a sum for the car. I honestly don't know what kind of idiot would buy a car without bothering to have the title of the car signed over to them, but I guess they were able to find somebody who was foolish enough or maybe desperate enough to do that. When I asked them what they had done with the money, they told me that they had transferred the funds to my sister so she could take a well-deserved break because her divorce had just been finalized a couple of weeks back and she needed to indulge herself in some self-care, and had even ordered a pair of diamond earrings and a bracelet for her online. They asked me not to be mad, but clearly, since I had bought the car, I was doing really well, and my sister had blown a lot of money on the divorce, so she really needed this. They could have paid for it with their own money, but they had to save for retirement as well, so they really expected me to be understanding of this and why they had done it. I was so furious that I didn't even know what to say to them, and I just started screaming in their faces, telling them that they had screwed up a big time because the car wasn't even mine. It belonged to Tyler, and they would have it from him once he found out about this. My parents had met Tyler a couple of times, but they were definitely not close, so even they received a shock when they found out that the car belonged to him and not me. But instead of being apologetic, they started freaking out and blaming me for not telling them the truth about who the car belonged to. They said that because of my decision to fake it, they had endangered themselves and quite possibly the person who had offered to buy that car. Apparently, they had planned on selling the car without my knowledge, and once I found out about it, they would just convince me not to press charges against them, and that would be it. But now, since they found out that the car didn't even belong to me in the first place, they were scared of what was going to happen and started bugging me to talk to Tyler and convince him not to press charges. They claimed that they had been fully convinced that I would not do anything to hurt them, and that's why they had sold the car when they thought it was mine, which is just insane. I don't even know how to make sense of that. Essentially, they were planning on taking advantage of the fact that I was family, and they were going to emotionally manipulate me into letting this slide. But with Tyler, they were not so confident and wanted me to do something to fix the situation. I told him that they could just contact the person who had bought the car and have him return it as it is, but they said that they had already sold it and transferred the funds to my sister, so that was not going to be possible. The only reason I was even negotiating with them was not that I wanted to protect them, but because I wanted the car back, because I knew how hard Tyler had worked for it, and the fact that my parents were still trying to defend the decision of selling the car for my sister's sake was pissing me off. So I told them that if they didn't do what I asked them to, then I would talk to Tyler and make sure that he pressed charges against them. And then, we were at a stalemate because they thought that I was being too cruel and that my sister had really been through a lot, so she deserved this vacation and the gifts that they had ordered for her, so they couldn't just take it all back from her after they had already told her about it. They claimed that she had been really happy when they had transferred the money to her and told her to take a vacation with that money, and had even mentioned the gift that she would be receiving once she came back home, and they couldn't take that happiness away by telling her that they had canceled the gifts, and she would need to return the money as well. So I told them that I couldn't care less about her happiness. I just needed the money back with a car, and if they didn't do it, I would speak to Tyler, and they said that they knew I wouldn't do anything to hurt them. So I got my phone right in front of them, called Tyler, and explained the situation to them while they just looked horrified, and told Tyler that I wanted him to press charges against my parents. I was very pissed off, and I could hear that even Tyler was very upset, so he told me that he was going to speak to his lawyer and do something about this. After the phone call, my parents started screaming at me once again and pushed me out of their house, saying that I was a horrible human being and that I did not deserve to be called their daughter anymore. I was fine with that, but then, they started saying that none of this would have even happened if I had just told them that the car did not belong to me, but instead, I had chosen to lie about it, and now, they were in trouble because of me. They said that I was just insecure that my boyfriend had a brand new shiny car, and I couldn't afford to have the same, which is why I was trying to show off in front of them to impress them, because they knew that I was just going to amount to a failure and nothing else. They had been right about it that their entire life, and I couldn't stand that. I found that very offensive when I tried to argue that I wouldn't even have brought the car with me if I had known what they had in mind, but they said that they had only sold the car because they thought that I was family and that I would understand their predicament. But clearly, I was only interested in faking my lifestyle to impress other people. That was almost 3 days back, and since then, I have been living in a hotel, waiting for Tyler to show up here, and we have been in touch, but I just can't help thinking that maybe this is my fault because I didn't tell my parents whom the car actually belongs to. So Ida for telling my parents that my boyfriend's car was mine when I visited them. Edit. Many of you wanted to know more about my relationship with my family. Well, as most of you might have figured out by now, there is a golden child in the family, and it's obviously not me. It's my older sister. She is 7 years older than me, and I don't have a good relationship with her. We have had no contact for the past couple of years, and it's not something that we decided on purpose, it's just something that happened organically. She lives out of state and rarely ever comes back home, and when she does, I don't visit my parents then because we don't get along. My childhood was not that bad, to be honest. Even though my parents were kind of biased towards my sister, I never felt like I was being sidelined or anything. This car incident just came out of nowhere. I had no idea that they were capable of doing something so crazy. Trust me, if they had treated me badly my entire life, I wouldn't even have stayed in touch with them. Earlier, it was only little things that used to bother me about my relationship with my parents, but they were very kind to me otherwise and were good parents all over. And that's why I stayed in touch with them, that's why I would visit them every month. This recent incident though, just came out of nowhere. I think they're getting old and senile, that's why they thought that this would be something acceptable and I would just let it slide because I was family or whatever. They were wrong though. And even the things that they had said towards the very end of our last meeting, while they were pushing me out of the house, that they had always believed I was a failure and I wanted to prove them wrong, I don't know why that came from either because they have always been very supportive of me. They had never implied that I would grow up to be a failure. Maybe they believed it in their heart, but they never let it show and were very good actors because I had been totally convinced that they loved me. This whole incident was the first one that was completely out of the blue, and I don't know what would have possibly driven my parents to act this crazy. I mean, I know that my sister's divorce was pretty bad. Her husband had been cheating on her and had still managed to get away with it without paying her alimony and a dismal amount of settlement money. But still, that's not an excuse for my parents to act like this. Anyway, I hope that helps you guys make sense of why I had to stay in touch with my parents and come to a conclusion about what I should do. It's kind of urgent, so I would appreciate quick advice. Update 1. Hey, so yesterday after I posted my update, most people told me that I had absolutely no fault in this. I did not want my parents asking questions about why Tyler had done with his car and stuff, so I just decided to tell them one white lie. There was literally no way I could have known that it would lead to all of this, and I don't need to beat myself up about it. And yes, my parents might have treated me decently in the past, but after what they have just pulled, I don't owe them anything. Tyler showed up this morning and he told me the same thing that people in the comments have been telling me, that I don't need to feel regret or guilt related to any of these. He is going to deal with this in his own way, and all I have to do is testify against my parents. Because he has had his lawyer draw up papers for a lawsuit and is pressing charges against my parents. And you know what? I'm going to be with him on this. They totally deserve whatever is coming to them, and they cannot dodge the consequences of this. In the evening, we plan on going to my parents' house and talking to them, giving them one last chance to fix their mistake, but I highly doubt that they are going to do it. Their only priority right now is making sure that my sister gets to indulge herself. I already tried reasoning with them earlier, but they were not receptive to it. If anything, I'm pretty sure that they're just going to feed me the same BS this time as well, but Tyler thinks that it's worth a try.